What's up, Tiger Gang? This is JT from the Poco Moonshine family. We're back again with another beautiful episode of Chatting with Carnivores. Today we got Sue. How you doing, Sue?
I'm great, JT. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
We're gonna carnivore with Sue today, and we're gonna see how she's doing the carnivore thing. But let's start. Where are you from and where are you at, Sue?
Okay, so I live in New Zealand, in the Waikato in New Zealand. Have spent a lot of years in Australia, but we've been back here in New Zealand for 8 years at this point.
Where are you originally from?
I was actually born in Scotland.
Scott? Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so I was born in Scotland, and then we migrated to New Zealand when I was little, and so I grew up here in New Zealand, and then shifted to Australia when I was 25. So we went over there when I was 25. Had the kids were only little then as well. The kids grew up in Australia, so we've got two kids, and they're now adults. So we were over there for 14 years, and then we came back here. We were back here for 4, and then we went back again for 8.5, and then we came back again 8 years ago.
Wow.
So it's been kind of back and forth across the ditch.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Nah.
Have you tried? I ask anybody when I hear Australia, have you tried any kangaroo?
Yes,
How
we
is
used
it?
to buy.
What's it taste like?
It's okay if you cook it right. So if you overcook it, it's just tough as. And I didn't really like kangaroo mince, but kangaroo steak was okay as long as it wasn't overcooked, because it can be a bit tough. And not a lot of fat on it.
No, not a lot of fat. I was going to ask if it's
No.
lean or
Yeah,
interesting.
it is. Yep, it is.
Yeah, I've been asking everybody because people like trying like the most exotic meats they can get. Like Rick down in Florida, he's been trying iguana. They're all over the place.
Oh, is that right?
They're just crawling around. So he says, whatever.
Yeah.
They're real juicy.
Yep.
So,
I've tried kangaroo and I've tried emu.
Oh, really?
Yep. But I haven't tried crocodile.
Emu, stay away from Sue.
I've actually got a story about an emu. But I nearly had an altercation with one when we were traveling in Western Australia, and I was preparing dinner. We were in this campground at Monkey Mire, and I was preparing dinner, and there was this emu that was wandering around the caravan park, and it was obviously used to being fed, and it came up, and it came right up to me, and it was right up on my face, and I had a knife and an onion in my hand, and I'm thinking in my mind, please don't come any closer, because otherwise we're going to be in the news. Right. I was just like, because it was as tall as me, and I was just like, oh.
We're eating emu again. Yeah, we're eating emu again.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, you were a vegan. Why did you stop being a vegan? What made you stop?
Okay, so it wasn't really a conscious decision to stop being a vegan at the time. I just kind of drifted. I think I was craving other foods basically, and trying to ignore that. But I just kind of drifted back into a vegetarian diet. So I was vegetarian prior to being vegan, and then a friend gave me a book, and it was written by a guy named Ross Horn, and he was the Australian spokesperson for the Pritikin diet, and he had become a fruitarian. So this friend of mine had rheumatoid arthritis. She got it when she was 18, and so she was using the fruit diet basically as a way to get herself into remission when she needed to. Like, she was quite bad, and that was kind of working for her at the time, but she lent me this book, and when I read it, I just went, as I do with things, I just dove into this fruitarian diet, and then from there went into more of a kind of standard vegan diet, and that lasted about 2 years, and then I guess I was just craving stuff, and so I went back to vegetarian, added eggs and cheese kind of back into my diet, and then I was vegetarian for probably about 10 years all up, and then I was just trying to resolve health issues, and that was why I started eating meat again. But when I was growing up, my dad's vegetarian, so my dad's nearly 90, and he's been vegetarian for probably maybe 50 odd years.
Wow.
Because he was going into it when I was a kid, so I'm the oldest, and he was kind of playing around with things when I was a kid, and he's actually pescatarian now. He started eating fish a few years ago because he realized he needed more protein. So and he eats a lot of eggs as well. But that was a big influence, having my dad being vegetarian, because he used to say all these things about meat and everything. So I always had this kind of meat is evil thing, I guess, and plants are the healthy option. And so that was where I went. So even when I started eating meat again 15 years ago, I still was massively plant-based, and I'd still go into periods where I'd go back to a vegan diet or raw vegan, because I was trying to resolve health issues. And so it was like, well, vegan harder or eat plants more, and so my diet was really clean. There wasn't hardly any processed food in there. It was all, organic and fresh, and we grew our own veggies wherever we could, and all the healthy stuff. That's now basically filled me up with oxalates, and now I'm trying to get rid of those. So, yeah, lots
So
to
what were
learn.
the specific health issues you had on being a vegan diet?
Yep. Okay, so even before I went vegan, so when I was, I'll go back. I'm just going to drink a water because my mouth's a bit dry.
Oh, you're okay.
So when I was a kid, even, like, I always had digestive issues, and I was back and forth to the doctors with sore tummies and stuff like that. And then when I had my daughter, so I was in my teens when I had my daughter, and I started having real problems with my gut, and was going backwards and forwards to A&E and to doctors and that, trying to work out what was going on, because I'd get a lot of abdominal pain. I'd have times where I'd just be vomiting for no apparent reason, diarrhea and that sort of thing. And so then when we shifted so the doctors never came up with anything. They'd do all their tests and stuff and give me random diagnoses. And I ended up on a drug called Tagamet for a couple of years, which is for ulcers. So that was what the last doctor here in New Zealand kind of had come to the conclusion, that I probably had an ulcer. So he chucked me on this drug. Now, I took that for a couple of years, and I was on it when we shifted over to Australia when I was 25. And I had said to the doctor, what do I do about this drug? I told him I was moving country. And he said to me, well, you've been on it a couple of years. You should be all right to come off it. So once we got to Australia and I ran out, we were in North Queensland, and it didn't take long, and I started getting crook again, like within about a month or so. So my grandmother, bless her heart, she had actually suggested to me that I should be taking slippery elm, which is a herb that helps to heal your gut, and it's very, very healing, very drawing. And she used to put it in my dad's bottle when he was a baby. So Nana was really into herbs, and she had told me about this stuff. And so when I ran out of these pills and was in North Queensland and started getting crook again, I was like, okay, so I'm going to go and see if I can find some slippery elm in North Queensland in 1990. It was a real challenge, but I did find some, and it helped. And that's how I ended up in the natural health space. That's what got me interested in natural health. So it helped. But then we settled in a little town in Queensland, and that's where our kids grew up, a little town called Nanango. And so the first year I was in Australia, I wasn't too bad, but then I just got myself into a really bad space with my health. So I was homesick. That was part of the problem. I was very homesick. And I put on a massive amount of weight. I went up to probably about 120 kilos. So I was about a size 24, and that was in my late 20s. And I had a lot of issues going on with anxiety and depression. Anxiety's always been a thing for me, right, since I was a kid, but it got way worse, and I was having panic attacks. I was kind of agoraphobic. I didn't really want to go anywhere. I stopped driving the car. I didn't drive for 5 years. And I was in a bad way with my health, hormonal health, my cycle, everything was just out of whack. And I was a heavy smoker at that stage as well. So things got really bad. And then when I was 30, one night I was sick of myself. I was really worried about my health. I thought, if I don't make a change, I'm not going to be here for my kids, And so one night I just said to my husband, look, I gave him the smokes. I said, I'm quitting. And so I quit smoking. And it's bizarre, I've never actually come across anyone who's had the same experience as me. Within like 24, 48 hours of stopping smoking, it was like everything in me changed. And I started exercising, had energy, and so I started exercising, and over 4 years, I dropped 45 kilos, which is 100 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty big. And so it was through that stage because I became a real exercise junkie, and it was through that stage that I kind of started to head into the vegetarian diet and then become vegan. And so when I went to the vegan diet, it wasn't long after that we shifted. So we moved from this little town down to the Gold Coast in Australia. And I got a job in Brisbane, and it was a much more stressful lifestyle. So we were down there for 2 years. I was traveling, the first year I was traveling backwards and forwards to Brisbane from the Gold Coast, which is an hour each way on the train. And I was doing a lot of overtime. So I was gone a lot of the time, 10, 12 hours, sometimes more a day working. And then the second year we were there, I got a job with a lady on the Gold Coast I was the IT manager for this company. So that was a stressful job. She made it quite stressful. So with the stress and the vegan diet, the diarrhea became a real problem. So the diarrhea has been my biggest health issue. And so this is a big talking point on my channel. And from that point on, the chronic diarrhea has always been a problem. And for anyone who's had that problem, they know how much it just messes up your life, man. It controls everything, because going to get jobs or, socializing, those sorts of things, it's on your mind all the time, because you want to, where all the toilets are. It's a real head thing. And so that was from the time I was vegan right through basically until I started the carnivore diet. I mean, it wasn't a every day, but it was most days. And if there was any stress, like work days are always worse. And any kind of stress, like I'd make excuses not to do fun things with friends, because there might not be a toilet there or whatever. And I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it to anybody. And so there was that. I had thyroid issues. So I had suspected that my thyroid was underactive for quite a long time. I'd been and had tests done. Like, I'm not a big fan of doctors, so I very rarely go. But I'd been and had tests done, but they would only test TSH. And so it was always borderline normal. But I was always cold, like my body temperature. I'd take my basal temperature in the morning and it'd be really low all the time. For years it was like that. And then so that was the reason that I started eating the meat again, was the thyroid stuff. And when I decided to do that, it was really like changing religion. It was, I thought about it long and hard. And the reason that I did it was because, have you heard of the blood type book? where if you're O, you're a meat eater, and if you're A, you're okay for a vegan diet and all that sort of stuff. I think I never heard of that, but
it's in your video you were talking about it. I heard through you.
Yeah. So it's not very sound science, but it's I don't think. But at the time, it was quite a thing. And so before I started eating meat again, I remembered that I had a copy of this book. And when I went looking, I actually had 2 copies. So I'd obviously bought 2 at different times, looked at them and gone, plants are the answer. So I read the book, and because I'm an O blood type, I thought, okay, I'm going to start eating meat and see what happens. And so when I did, the day I decided, it was funny because I decided, okay, I'm going to start eating meat this day. And then the day, what we were doing that day changed, and I didn't have any meat to cook or time to cook it. So I ended up going and buying a cooked chicken from the supermarket, which wasn't a great start, but that's what I had because I was so determined that I was going to start that day. But when I started eating meat again, I noticed such a difference. It was incredible. Like, I remember, because I was really into fitness and everything back then, and I'd always done a lot of walking and cycling, and I'd done a few triathlons and stuff, and swimming and riding my push bike and all those sorts of things. But I'd never really been able to run. Like, my legs, even when I was a kid, I always had this thing where my legs, the energy, it was like the energy in the muscles wasn't right or something. It's a weird thing. It still happens very occasionally, even now. So running was never a thing. And then all of a sudden, when I started eating meat, that changed. And I could run. And so I started running. And so I ran like most days of the week for 8 years, until I couldn't anymore. And so there was a big change there. So, and I couldn't get enough meat into me. I'd actually been craving meat for a couple of years before I did that, and was trying to just put it out of my mind because, my husband and my son ate meat and stuff, and I'd smell it cooking, and I'd be like, it's like, I don't know, I guess if you've got an addiction to something, you're trying to ignore it. That's kind of what it was like. And so, yeah, when I started eating it, I just couldn't get enough for probably 6 months or so. Like, I'd go and down these massive steaks. I remember my dad sitting there looking at me when we went out for lunch one day. And I'm eating this huge steak. But so yeah, then that all kind of settled down. And then I had so after I started eating meat again, a year or two later, we actually shifted back to Australia. That was when we shifted back the last time. And we went back and we bought a business, and we put all the money from our house into that business, and it wasn't a good decision. We kind of got a bit ripped off and ended up closing the doors and walking. But that year in that business was incredibly stressful. And so that kind of compounded and made things worse again with the whole diarrhea stuff and everything. And then I ended up with an overactive thyroid after that. So about 18 months, 2 years later, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, which is the autoimmune thyroid disease. And the doctor was going to send me to a specialist, and I said, no, I'm going to go, because I kind of knew what their answers were and I wasn't going to go there. So I went home and did a whole bunch of research and reading and stuff, and ended up, it's crazy. I did a 78-day juice feast. So I lived on juice for 78 days only. So only juice. And that's slowed my symptoms down. Like, it kind of really settled them down, I guess, because there was no fiber. There was nothing going through my gut that was irritating it as bad. And I wasn't eating some of the foods that were probably causing me problems. I guess that's why that helped. But it didn't resolve it. So I did that, and then I ended up going onto the GAPS diet. So GAPS stands for Gut and Psychological Syndrome, and there's the lady who named that diet is Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride is her name, and she's got some good books on that. So that diet is based on a diet that doctors used to prescribe for people who had different issues, and it was what was it used to call? The specific carbohydrate diet is what they used to call it. So it knocked out a whole lot of carbs. And so Natasha McBride, her son ended up with autism, and so that was why she started delving into diet and ended up coming up with this GAPS diet. So she changed the specific carbohydrate diet and made her own GAPS diet. And so when I started on that, I followed her advice and I took all plants out of my diet. And so I was living on initially meat broth with meat in it, and then eventually started adding a little bit of plant material back into that meat broth, really well cooked. And like, as soon as I did that, as soon as I took the plants out of my diet, the difference in my gut was just amazing. And that was 10 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So when I did that, I still didn't think about the fact that it might be that the meat's the healthy thing and the plants weren't. Like she says in her book, if your gut is irritated, putting fiber in there is like rubbing steel wool on irritated skin. And that absolutely makes sense. And my whole digestive tract was inflamed. Like, I went to a naturopath when we were living in Harvey Bay, and she examined me, and when she pushed on my belly, I hadn't actually realized that. She said, your whole digestive system, and it was, if I touched my stomach anywhere down, it was sore. The whole lot was sore. And so the whole of my digestive tract from one end to the other was basically inflamed. I've never had any diagnoses because I don't go to doctors. So I kind of think, you can get a diagnosis for something, but it doesn't make any difference to what's going on. So my theory has always been work on what's going on and try and resolve it. So I've kept things kind of managed most of the time over the years, but it's never gone away, And so after I started on the GAPS diet, things all kind of settled down. My thyroid settled down. And then I just gradually started eating plants again and went back to the normal high plant, and the superfoods, the chia seeds and the cacao and the nuts and the, all of that stuff, buckwheat and all that stuff that's super high in oxalate. I was downing tons of that every day. And so I did that for years, and I'd still go back to the vegan thing, like even the last time we went vegan, and my husband did as well. He'd never been vegan before. We both went vegan in 2021. So probably because I started on carnivore 31st of May 22. And so I think we were probably vegan around the end of 2021. And that was after watching Game Changers, that stupid documentary propaganda thing about the vegan diet. Yeah. And because it was after watching that, my husband said, oh, maybe we should go vegan. So we did. And he's not a big guy anyway, my hubby. He was about 80 kilos. He went down to 59 kilos. Wow. Like within months, all the muscle just fell off him. Like he's going to be 65 in a couple of weeks. His arms were so wrinkly and skinny. It was just incredible. And he was cold, super cold. Like we went to the beach and he went into the water and he thought he was going to die. He felt like he couldn't breathe because he was so cold. And that was because he'd lost so much muscle within 3 months. It was just, it was incredible. So, so he started on the carnivore diet about the same time as me. I made the decision and then he just kind of followed. Although he eats more, so he has that at lunchtime still. And he has fruit after dinner. I have some berries off and on, more on than off lately. But I'm not going to knock them on the head in the next couple of days, I think. So, but yeah, he's put muscle back on and is feeling so much better eating this way. Yeah, it's incredible. And so so when where had I got to? I had done gaps and then back on the thing. And so that was me until May last year. So my daughter had actually mentioned carnivore to me. Probably it might have even been 3 or 4 years ago because she was doing a lot of fasting and fat fasting. And so obviously people she was following were talking about it. And when she mentioned carnivore to me, I was just like,
so is that how you heard about the carnivore diet? Through your daughter?
First time was her mentioning it. Yep. And I was just like, oh, that's a bit radical, and I just kind of discarded it. And she never did it. She never went on to carnivore. And then I decided to do the keto diet because my weight was up so much. Because the other thing that I haven't talked about is since we've moved back here in New Zealand was that I rented the same rooms for my business in town that I'd been in last time we were here and forgot that they were full of mold, like really bad mold. And so the mold, I was in there this time for 4.5 years and the mold really affected my health. And one of the first indications of that, which I didn't realize at the time, was after I'd been in there for a year, all of a sudden, within just a couple of months, I just put on all this weight. And my weight had been really quite stable for a lot of years. And then all of a sudden it just ballooned. Boom. And I didn't know why. I didn't know why it had gone up, but that can be a mold illness thing as well. So that was kind of the first indication that mold was really affecting my health. And I didn't kind of click that that's what that was until I'd been in there probably about 3.5 years. And I started to develop a cough. My immune system was really low. I had all the diarrhea stuff, everything was getting worse, and the anxiety and everything was getting worse. And then a friend, she's actually a client, but has become a friend. She sent me through an article by a friend of hers who's a naturopath in Australia that had a bout with mold illness. And when I read through all the symptoms, I was like, oh my God, that's what this is. And so that was when I realized that I needed to move my business. So I shifted my business home. So I've been working on resolving the mold, because once mold gets into your body, it can be quite hard to undo. So I've been working on that. I've had my business at home now for 3 years, and things are improving. And then when I went on to keto because of my weight, I was trying to get rid of some weight. So I went on to the keto diet it must have been about March 22. So I was on it for a couple of months, and it was on there. Like, it was when I was doing that. I was following Dr. Mindy Pelz on YouTube. She's a keto doctor, and she interviewed Paul Saladino, and that's where the carnivore diet came up again. And so I listened to Paul's story, and it just kind of resonated. And so I ordered his book, and then decided to start the carnivore diet. I thought I'll give it a go for a month. And within a couple of weeks, within a week, I think I had changes that were going on just on my skin and stuff. So I had some sunspots on my hands there was one on this hand in particular, it was quite big, and they started changing straight away. straight away. And I was like, oh my God, this is interesting. And because my bowels settled down and everything at first, but then it took off again later. But the changes in my skin and just the way I felt, increase in muscle mass has been amazing. Like even without exercising, like I was putting muscle back on my body. I could see it on my arms, and just feeling stronger again because, after so many years of doing lots of exercise, to feel like I didn't have any energy to exercise for the last probably 8 years or so, especially the last 5. I'd want to. I'd have it in my mind and try, but I just didn't have the extra energy to be able to do it. Whereas now I'm starting to feel like exercising again, which
Now
is
you're
really good.
feeling it.
Yeah, yep,
Let's take
absolutely.
a couple comments quick, and then
Mhm,
we'll get back to some more questions.
mhm.
Primal Mike says hello.
Hello.
How you doing, Mike? Hot dog, I made it on time. Hey y'all. How you doing, Renee? LL, this is the first time I saw Captain Crunch. Oh, behind you. Man, I wish I was a kid, young adult. I could eat my weight in that stuff. Yeah, when I did eat cereal, it was Captain Crunch, the peanut butter version. It was oh man, bowl after bowl. Carnivore Scott, howdy, how you doing, bud? If you guys got a question for Sue, make sure you put a Q in front of it, okay? It just helps me see it a lot easier, all right? Evening, Scotty, how you doing? Linus Hiker, how you doing? Oh, here one. You want to read this one? Or do you want me to get
Me?
it for you? I
Hang on,
noticed
put
you
my
took your
glasses
glasses off.
on. What's hanging on the wall behind me? That used to be a saw, as in a hand saw. That's now a tree, but you can only see part of it. Hang on.
Oh,
There we
that's
go.
cool.
Yeah, my hubby was doing stuff out of like recycled metal and stuff, and that was one of the things that he did.
Yeah, Carnivore Scott says looks like a handsaw repurposed or a
Yeah, it was.
skeleton.
Yeah, it was a hand saw. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Mm.
Everybody's debating what it is. A fish spine.
Yeah,
No, it's a
yeah, it
tree.
kind of
It's a
looks like
tree.
that. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, let's see here. Very creative to be sure. Yep, it is. Nice to meet you, Sue.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, smash the like button for Sue's story. She's on here and she's sharing her truth, and she's connecting with people, and there's somebody out there who's going to hear her story and really appreciate that they did. Already done. Nice. I am
Thank you.
subscribed to Sue. Are you? Yes. You guys, let me pull up her channel quick. Just give me 1 second. Click this button. Boom. Here we go. Carnivore with Sue. Make sure you guys smash the subscribe button, smash the like button, share it, because the more we interact with the videos, the better the algorithm. We are the algorithm, so
Yeah.
if we interact with it, they share it to more people. Let me see. Let me go back here, check some more comments, and we'll get some more questions. Let's see. Subscribe now too. Thank you.
Thank you.
How much do you weigh, Sue?
Okay, so at the moment, so I've been up. So as I said, when I was in my 20s, I went up to about 120 kilos. Since I've been back in New Zealand, my heaviest since I've been back was 107 kilos, and I'm at the moment I'm about 93. So some of that had already come down a little bit before I started on carnivore, just because I'd been kind of intermittent fasting and stuff, but it was super, super slow. And then since I've been carnivore, I'm down about 7 kilos, so which is probably only about 15 pounds or so, but almost 2 sizes in my clothing. So my lean body mass is up quite a bit. I watched the video with the lady the other day who was talking about her scales that measure the body fat and everything. I've got a set of those as well. And so yeah, my skeleton's gone, like my bones weight has gone up, and my muscle weight has gone up a bit. So yeah, the size has come down a fair bit.
She's headed
Yeah,
the right direction. We got
heading in the right direction there. Yep,
yep,
slowly.
midlife
Yep.
carnivore question. Did you go through oxalate dumping? If so, what
Oh,
were your symptoms?
yeah, I'm still going through oxalate dumping. So as I said, I've eaten mountains of oxalate for years and years and years. And I used to do the whole spinach smoothies with the raspberries and the cacao and the chia seeds and the almonds and the everything in there. So I was probably close to toxic doses sometimes. And so when I started on carnivore, as I said, my bowel settled down initially, and then it kicked off again. And so I actually had a really bad diarrhea on carnivore for about 9 months last year. It actually got worse, and it was less manageable because I've learned to manage it over the years using, activated charcoal and homeopathic remedies and bentonite clay and things like that. So charcoal's really good because it'll slow things down. But once it kicked off on carnivore, it was harder to manage, and so it was really stressful. So I was trying to work out why it wasn't going away, and because there's all the stuff about fat. So I played around with fat, and having less of that, and didn't make any difference. And then I kind of eventually realized, because I was making my bone broth, and I realized that my bone broth was a problem. So histamine was also part of that. So, but oxalate was a huge part. So initially, like the oxalate, it was like I'd have only 2 or 3 days, and then I'd start dumping again. And because when you're oxalate dumping, if you get diarrhea from that, it's like burns, and it looks real gritty, like sandy. And so there was lots of that. Too much information for some people probably, but that's just the way that it was. And so um, and then after a while I realized that the bone broth was a problem too, because histamine was a problem with the bone broth. So I stopped the bone broth, and I was playing around with, like I'd have one small potato every couple of days, because the fiber, that's why I ended up back eating the blueberries, because the fiber would help to slow it down. And so I would sort of have days where I wouldn't have any, and then I'd have days where I'd have some, just to try and slow the diarrhea down. And so the diarrhea stopped just before Christmas last year, pretty much. Still have the occasional problem, and my anxiety will kind of kick it off a little bit sometimes, but nothing like it was. And so it's like 100%, like 95% better is what it would be, I would say, at the moment. But I'm still oxalate dumping. And so the other symptoms that I get, I've had some bizarre symptoms. My scalp has got really bad over the last 6 months or so, itchy, flaky, and there's little crystals coming out of my scalp. It is getting slowly better, but it's still pretty bad. I've been getting oxalate crystals coming through my skin. I had a whole pile of them coming through the skin of my chest just recently. And I've got some in a container, and they look like little crystals. So there was a whole pile of them, and they are little clear, translucent bits of crystal. I'd heard that they could come through people's skin, but I had one that came out through my eye the other night, and I had rubbed my eye because I could feel that there was something there, and rubbed it, and it stung like my eye started watering. So I guess it was maybe dissolving slightly, and because it's acidic, oxalate, and it was burning like anything.
Hmm.
Um, get sore joints sometimes, sore muscles. Where most of the time my joints are really good now, like because I used to have pain in all the joints in my fingers, and that's heaps better. But I get little random bits will kind of, all of a sudden your foot's sore, or your ankle sore, or it locks up, that kind of thing. And what else? It kind of it just, I think it makes the whole anxiety side of things and that a little bit worse as well, because when you're oxalate dumping, it so when there's a lot of oxalate in your bloodstream, it binds minerals. So it binds magnesium and calcium and things like that. So it can cause electrolyte issues. I've had heart arrhythmia stuff going on. Not lately though. It's been really good. And yeah, can make all of even the anxiety and stuff worse, because there's less magnesium, cramps, those sorts of things. Like what a lot of people put down to electrolyte issues can be because they're oxalate dumping, even if they don't realize it.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
That's a great answer.
Ta.
Hello, Sue and JT. How you doing?
Hey.
How long have you been on Carnivore, Sue?
So I've been on Carnivore now 15 months. Yeah, 15 months. Yep. So May
15.
31st last year was when I started.
Oh, okay. That's
Mm.
great. You're doing great. Oh, I'm sorry. I can relate to the watery stool issues. Has that resolved for you now, Sue? Sorry about that.
It has just about all of the time. Very occasionally I have problems. And as I said, my anxiety will kind of kick it off a little bit sometimes as well, especially if it's already kind of playing up a little bit. But most of the time, really good. Really, really good.
That's great.
Yep. So such a blessing.
Rick, this is Rick. He's been a carnivore for 40 years now, since
Oh, wow.
1983.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
and
on you.
he's doing great, and no gray hairs, nothing. He's doing great.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's
Um
definitely anti-aging.
yeah,
Carnivore
yes.
diet.
Yes
Yep.
it is. Well, let's what did someone say here? Rick, we need a carnivore live coordinator. Hello. Yeah, yep. There's a lot of other streams going on right now. What health
Mm.
victories have you experienced that are your favorite?
Okay, so the diarrhea thing is the favorite. So
Mm,
that's massive. My main challenge with that now is getting past the head side of it because it's been going on for so long. The mind part of it still plays on my mind all the time. So like even setting up for this to come on here today, I was fine until this morning when I got up, and then I was like, oh, what, I have to go to the toilet part of the way through through the video. And that's the sort of stuff that goes on my head. So I've got to find a way to kind of move through that, because yeah, that's still a thing. So that getting rid of some weight and being able to, I'm starting to be able to fit into some clothes that I've got in my wardrobe that I haven't either worn for years or never been able to wear because I bought them and they were too small.
good for
So
you.
yeah, so it's like, yay. Yeah, and just feeling better, and feeling like exercising. Oh my God, that's so good. To have some energy is really cool, and feeling stronger again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
energy to do the stuff you want to do,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And the strength, because for me, like I've always been really quite strong. Like I used to do a lot of weight training and stuff. I mean, the business that we bought in Australia was a gym. So, like I used to do a lot of weight training, and I was strong, like, and to go from that to, like, I was having trouble getting up off the floor. If I got down on the floor, it's like my legs wouldn't get me up. And that was really concerning me because, like, my job, as I spoke about what I do, I do body work. So I've been a massage therapist for about 25 years, doing massage and myofascial work. And then 8 years ago, when we came back to New Zealand, I learned another modality that's originated here in New Zealand, called contact care, flinch lock release, and it works with bone impact. It gets
Mm,
amazing results for so many things. And so I have a lot of elderly clients, and I see people all the time who they have trouble even getting on and off my table because they've got no strength. They can't push themselves up, and they can't let themselves down because they haven't got any upper body strength. And so that's always been a concern for me. And then when I could feel myself getting like that, that was really bothering me a lot.
mm.
Yeah. Mm.
What do you eat during a week of carnivore?
Okay, so what do I eat? So I have some days where I do OMAD, and then other days I'll have two meals, just depending. Like the last couple of days, I've had breakfast, and then I don't have any lunch, and then I'll have dinner. I'm kind of experimenting. I'm thinking about trying 3 meals a day for a little bit to see if it helps with the weight loss, because I'm actually wondering whether doing OMAD, whether I'm turning it too much into glucose, and that's kind of maybe slowing things down a bit. I'm not really sure.
Mm.
But so most of the time we eat a lot of steak. So rump and sirloin in particular, we call ribeye Scotch fillet over here, and that's my favorite, but it's so expensive. It's like $40 a kilo here in New Zealand. It's
Wow.
crazy. Sometimes more expensive. You'll get it on special sometimes for $36 a kilo. So that makes it, what, $18 a pound or something, I think, round about. But the rump steak and sirloin, we buy it in bulk and we just slice it ourselves. So we eat quite a lot of that. We eat a lot of mince, which is ground beef in your language, and we were eating a lot of chicken, but we've slowed down on that because I don't think it really agrees with me as
No,
much as the red meat does. Yep. And I get hungrier too if I've been eating chicken than I do when I'm eating red meat. So I eat a lot of that.
me too. It doesn't fill
And
me up for as long.
yeah, no, it doesn't, eh? It's not as satisfying. Yeah, that's what I find. I was doing quite a lot of butter. I've slowed down on that as well because I was wondering if that was affecting my weight loss as well. And what else do we eat? I eat a little bit of seafood, not a whole lot. I've never been a huge seafood eater, but it really agrees with me, so I think I probably should. I
Shrimp,
do like prawns. Prawns, love them. Yeah. And I've started eating some sardines. which
sardines, huh?
I had never eaten sardines, and it really was quite brave to actually try them. I did a 3-day sardine fast a while back. I've been listening to Dr. Boz. That's her name, I think. And I did a 3-day sardine fast. So it was interesting because when I did that, the way that I could eat them was if I pan fry them in butter. So if I pan fry them in butter, I could eat them. And so I did the 3 days, and it actually got my body to go into ketosis a lot easier, which I
Really,
found even for quite a while after that. And I was losing weight steadily after the first time I did that for a little bit. So I thought that was interesting.
it is interesting. Now you
Yeah.
mentioned
Yeah.
your exercise just a minute ago. What are you
Mm.
doing for exercise normally?
Okay. So normally, like I used to do a lot of aerobics, loved aerobics. And as I said, a lot of walking and running. At the moment, I've started doing a little bit of aerobics again, just with because I used to do. There's a program called Aerobics Oz Style that used to be on TV as an Australian one, and all their videos now are on YouTube. So I've been back doing some of that, and just a little bit of like body weight, press ups and squats and that sort of thing. Bit of yoga. Um, what else have I been doing? Rebounding. So I've got a rebounder. Do a little bit of that. And yeah, that's about it at the moment. Little bit of weight training, but not a whole lot. But want to get more back into that. But getting there slowly.
Back to the food. What's your favorite cut of beef?
It's definitely Scotch fillet. So the ribeye.
The ribeye.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you guys call it?
Scotch fillet.
I never heard of that.
No, weird. I don't know why, but we call it Scotch fillet.
Scotch Phillip. I never
Yep.
heard of that. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
Scotch Phillip.
Scotch fillet. Yep.
Yeah, I like that. Um, okay, here's a fun one. Would you take $1 million to go back to your old ways of eating, your old diet?
No way in hell, JT. No way. No,
No,
no, no, I wouldn't.
it's a lot of money.
Because it is a lot of money, but you know what? It's not worth anything if you haven't got your health. And that's the thing. It's like health is number one. It really is, because without it, there's not a whole lot else, really.
How could you spend the million or enjoy spending even $1 of it if you feel like
Yep.
crap?
Yep. That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah, my health's been in some bad places over the years, so
So
I'd
you're
rather not
see
be there.
people sometimes like Dave. I got that from Dave Mack. He was, and some people are saying like, oh, it's a biased question. You're asking a carnivore. No, it's actually not, because she's done
Mm.
carnivore long enough to know whether she wants out for the
Yep.
million or she wants to stay in
Yeah.
for free. You know what she's got
Yeah.
now.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. That's the thing, because I mean I've been on it for over a year now, and I know the differences. This is the thing, is like when you mention carnivore to people, so like I've told some of my clients who I'm a bit closer to, and they look at you like they think you're mental, and I know my dad does as well. And but because when there's not a lot of visible change on the outside, because when I first went carnivore, I actually looked worse for a while. My skin, like the oxalate dumping and stuff, my skin was really bad. I still have patches, especially on this side of my face for some reason, where it'll play up. But my skin got really bad, and I'd have times, where I would just look like crap. And so I could see people looking at me going, oh my God, she's eating this diet, she's going to kill herself. But they can't feel what I feel in my body. And that's the thing, is like when you can feel the changes and what's going on, because I had other health issues that I haven't actually mentioned, like nosebleeds that I was getting almost every day, and vertigo and dizzy spells. Like I had dizzy spells that were making me feel like I was going to pass out, and they were pretty much daily as well, sometimes multiple times a day. and all of these things that are going on. And then when they stop, it's like, well, I can feel that. You can't see that. You can't feel or see what's happening in me, but I can feel it. Yeah.
You guys go subscribe. We can carnivore with Sue every day as long as you guys hit that subscribe button. You were at 643. All right, you're at 646. Let's keep that number going up, guys. That's awesome.
Oh, thank
Let's
you.
go. All right, let's catch on a couple more comments here, and then we'll do some more questions. I'm getting backlogged here. Okay, I think everybody's. If you guys got a question, put the Q in front of it. That really helps me. Okay. Thanks, Bubba. You know, it's a good interview because she's got a good story and she's doing a great job. If so, that's why it's a good interview. JT's becoming my new favorite carnivore. Oh, thank you, man. And I appreciate you too, Rick. Here we go. I see a Q. Do you want to take this one? All right, Sue, do you know Limitless Lindy?
No. Is she another carnivore?
Yes.
Okay. No, I haven't heard of her. I'll have to look her up.
Karen Harrington hopped over here to see what's happening. Hey, thanks for hopping on over. How you doing? Shout out to Karen. Carnivore Dog Sitter, subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep subscribing, guys, to her channel. She really appreciates it. I appreciate it too. Let's see here. Primal Mike, it's amazing how everyone's stories are so different. Yeah, everybody's got their own angle to this,
Yeah.
and you know, they do carnivore the way that works for them, and I love sharing it because I learned something from each carnivore.
Yep.
Subbed Midlife Carnivore, thank you. Thank you so much. Here we go. We got another question. Sue, I was a couple minutes late. Did you say you were where did you say you were from?
I'm from New Zealand. So I live in New Zealand currently. We've been back here for 8 years. I was actually born in Scotland, but grew up here in New Zealand, then lived in Australia for a lot of years, came back here. We'll probably head back to Australia eventually. That's the plan. But at this stage, we're in New Zealand.
What's your favorite part about New Zealand?
The greenery, the green in the hills, you know, like New Zealand's a nice country. It's got a few problems at the moment, which I think a lot of countries do at the moment, but it's a nice place, and the people here in New Zealand are pretty cool for the most part. So yeah, it's a lot of beauty here.
A lot of beauty.
Yeah,
I've never been there.
Mm.
Is your family eating carnivore? I know you said
Well, my daughter, my husband does, yeah, and he's just had the rest of his teeth out, so he's got no teeth at the moment, but he's still managing.
We've been doing steaks, huh? That's how my gramps was. My gramps, he was the well, I shouldn't say the only guy, but at the time, he's the only guy I knew who had no teeth, but he could chew up a steak like it was nobody's business.
Yeah. Well, he just had them out. He just had the last of them out last week. But we've been just doing slow cooked meats and stuff for him. He's been eating a little bit more veg because he's kind of had to a little bit, but he's managing. He's getting pretty good now. So he'll be back into eating steaks very soon, I should imagine. Or he had roast lamb last night, so he was just cut it up real little. Yeah, we eat quite a lot of lamb being in New Zealand. So yeah, we
What about your kids?
Oh, that was the question, eh? So my kids, my daughter, so as I said, she was the one that first mentioned carnivore to me, but she never did it, right? And then I started on it, and I was telling her, you know, how's it getting on and stuff. And because she lives at the other end of the island, so we don't see a whole lot of them. But we went down there in June, I think, for the weekend. And when we came home, she messaged me the day after we got home, and she said to me, Mum, she goes, I'm going to start on the carnivore diet. She goes, you've inspired me. She said, you're looking great. She goes, and you've inspired me. So she started, but she jumped straight into the line diet.
Wow.
And so she did 3 months strict line. So just red meat, salt and water. And she dropped 20 kilos in 3 months. And then she's been gradually kind of playing around with introducing bits and pieces. But my grandson, so he's 12, he decided he was going to do it too because he had a little bit of weight on. He was starting to get a bit paranoid about his weight. You know, he's at that age. And so he's on it as well, and he's really enjoying it, and he's feeling really good. He's having some fruit. So he's doing the Paul Saladino kind of way. But yeah, he's feeling really good. My granddaughter, she wanted to try it as well. She's only 8, but she only lasted a couple of days, and then she was like, "Yeah, no, I don't want to do this." But
She's got time, right? She's got time.
she's got time, yeah. But yeah, my grandson, he's really into it. He turned down some banana cake at school the other day because he's really committed to doing this, and just he knows that he's feeling better. So, because she said he's not lost any weight on the scales, but he's definitely thinned down heaps, and he's looking quite gangly because he's taller than me. Like, he's only 12, and he's taller than me. So
His
yeah,
body's still growing though, so he's
he's
going to
great.
be
So, yeah,
packing that on.
yeah, because that's what I said to her when she said to me, "Do you think it's a good idea?" I said, "Hell yeah!" I said, "He will thrive, especially at the moment going into puberty. He will absolutely thrive."
I think
So
that's how
yeah,
Rick, the 40-year carnivore, got so damn tall.
yeah,
Yeah, he was actually
yep,
kind of short at first, he said, and then he was taller than everybody else because he ate it
right,
when he was still growing. So I think
yep,
that was a big
yep,
one.
yeah.
Carnivore Scott has a question: is sheep
hmm
cheaper to eat in New Zealand?
Um, well, some of it is. So we eat it quite a lot of, or I eat quite a lot of shoulder chops. So we can get those quite often for about $12 or $13 a kilo. So
Hmm.
probably about $5 or $6 a pound. And lamb legs, we can quite often get those on special for about $11 or $12 a kilo. So when they're on special like that, I'll buy a couple and chuck them in the freezer. Yeah. One of my favorites as well is the lamb legs. Yum.
The lamb legs.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, how much does meat cost? Is it all pretty
It's quite
expensive?
expensive. It's quite expensive. And like for even the kind of cheaper cuts of steak and that, you're paying about $20 a kilo is kind of the minimum usually. Even ground meat is usually about $15 a kilo. So $6-7 a pound. Yeah. So it is. It's not cheap here. Even though we've got paddocks, we've got a whole country full of sheep and beef. My
Mhm.
son's on a lifestyle block, and he grows some cattle. So they've been there for 3 years, and he's gradually building up his little herd. So he had 3 slaughtered last year. So we got half a cow off him last year, which was great. But we chowed through that fairly quickly. So
Yep, yep. It only
yeah,
lasts so long, especially when you're carnivore now, and that's pretty
yep,
much all you eat. That's all what
yeah,
you eat, so
yeah, yep, yep,
that's
yeah.
funny. Um, what is this is off a little bit, but what's a good book you'd suggest for everybody to
Oh,
read?
um,
Could be
in the
anything.
car in the carnivore side of things, I'd recommend Sally Norton's book about oxalates. Like, I recommend that a lot if people are interested in that subject, and if oxalate is an issue. I learned quite a lot from her book. Um, Apart from that, crikey, the Conversations with God series by Neil Donald Walsh. They're amazing books. And Home with God by Neil Donald Walsh. Not religious. It's but good information.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mhm.
Because I like writing down books and just seeing what people are reading. Um,
Yep.
what message do you have for vegans out there specifically, or other
Mm.
people that are trying to, you know, tear
Yeah.
carnivores down?
Yeah. My message would be that you don't know what you don't know until you know, and that's and there's a lot of propaganda out there about vegan and plant-based diets. That's just not true. Until For anyone who hasn't tried carnivore, they don't know what it's like, because, as I said, it's what you feel in your body. You can't see what's going on with someone from the outside, but the person that's doing it can feel what's happening in their body. And it's when you feel those changes, especially if you've been on a vegan diet. If you're eating a vegan diet, you're filling your body up with oxalates that can take years to come out, absolute years. And that's the thing. Like, I've done that for decades, and now I don't know how long I'm facing with all this oxalate dumping to get this stuff out of my body. I actually wrote an article on my website. I've got a new website, and the address is Meet My Diet, as in MEAT, mydiet.com. Now, I've written an article on there about the oxalates coming out of my breasts, right? So when that happened, the next day, my thought was, well, so oxalate is inflammatory and it's acidic. Would it contribute to breast cancer? And it does. I had a look, and there's a whole pile of research since 2015. There's quite a few studies that show that oxalate, calcium oxalate, causes breast cancer, and yet no one is talking about that. No one's talking about it. So if somebody, because a lot of women, when they're diagnosed, they have a breast cancer diagnosis, they head for a plant-based diet. And so if they've been on just a standard diet, the plant-based diet is going to be better because it's cleaner. It hasn't got all the chemicals and stuff. But if they've already been eating a fairly healthy diet, it's probably not going to help them, and it might make it worse, because if they're consuming more oxalate, they're going to end up with more oxalate stored in their body and potentially in that breast tissue. So that's something that, I mean, oncologists should be telling their patients, but they're not, because the health industry is very much swayed by the pharmaceutical dollars profit machine. So they're not telling people about that, and people need to know, because it's real, and it's being studied now. So they've only really started studying it since about 2015, from what I can gather.
I like that. You guys, if you have a question, put a Q in front of it. It's a little easier for me to read it, because we got Sue live in the flesh here. Oh, I got a fun one. We were having a carnivore hangout the other night, and I I asked everybody, if you could come up with a meat themed amusement park ride, what would yours be? Mine would be the heart attack, I think I called it.
meat themed amusement park ride. I don't know.
Somebody came up with beef bumpers. Beef bumpers, you know, like those little bumpers.
Yep. Lunging lambs or something we could have.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
No, we try to have fun with it, you know, and
yep. Think outside of the box a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's nice to just have fun with it sometimes, and you know, just you know, not everything's got to be serious.
Something
Let's just say
a bit off the wall. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you got anything on your heart you want to say before we wrap up?
I don't know. Just, if there's anybody that's watching this that's thinking about the carnivore diet, but they're not sure, just try it. Try it for, give yourself 30 days and see what changes, because especially if you've got health issues, autoimmune diseases, or the whole gut issue, the diarrhea and stuff, or even any kind of IBS, digestive issues. It just works magic. I mean, sometimes it takes a while, but for a lot of people it doesn't. For a lot of people it makes a difference really quickly. So yeah, depends on how old you are, I guess, and how long your body's been an issue. But yeah, I just say, just do it. Like, get past because a lot of people seem to worry about what other people are going to think, what people are going to say, and the cost of it as well. It's like, but when you stop buying all the other stuff, it's actually not really any different. Because I used to spend a lot of money on organic produce and all that sort of stuff, and now we don't need to. So
do you find it's cost the same, or it costs less, more?
Probably about the same for us at the moment. Because what we found when we first went carnivore, we were actually eating a lot more than we are now. Because when I first went carnivore, I was really hungry, like real hungry for quite a few months.
Your body wanted it, needed
it.
That's 650.
Common.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's really common. I couldn't fast, and but now I can fast, and we've slowed down on how much we actually eat. I mean, we would both sit down to a big pile of red meat and chicken wings and whatever, but yeah, now that's all settled down a bit. So, and because we buy our meat in bulk, that helps as well. And when it's on special,
Yeah, absolutely. Or buy like a half cow, full cow. Okay, let me see. We got a question here. Question, Sue, do you use electrolytes?
Okay, so I was using one that's actually It's actually made from seawater, like it's dehydrated seawater. So it's not just the magnesium, potassium, salt stuff. It's got all the other trace minerals in that in it as well. And I found that really good. And I was using that a lot for quite a long time. But over the last few months, I haven't really needed it. I have salt. So I've just basically switched to salt. I get up in the morning and I have a couple of big pinches of Celtic sea salt in some hot water. And we also, because we distill our water, so we put a little bit of salt in our distilled water as well. So just in a 4 litre jug, we just put about a quarter of a teaspoon just to add something back into it. But yeah, I always have my salt in the morning. And then if I just start feeling a bit tired or a bit jaded or whatever, I'll have a bit more salt just under my tongue or in some water during the day. And that seems to work for me.
That's a good question. Good answer, too.
Mm-hmm.
Sue, what's your favorite movie? I got to know.
My favorite movie. My favorite movie of all time was probably Braveheart.
Braveheart. Oh.
Yeah. Watched that multiple times.
I just like seeing what people's. I'm a movie guy, so
Yeah.
I pick everybody's brains for that.
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
Yes, I did.
Good. I had
Been
fun
great.
too. So would you
Yep.
come back for an update video?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Cool.
Absolutely. Mm.
Oh
Yep.
yes. Now that they're talking about beef bacon, yeah, beef bacon. Do you have beef bacon or pork bacon?
Pork.
Pork.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yep.
I've ever tried beef bacon yet.
No, I've never. I've seen people making bacon out of other types of meats, but I've never tried it. Yeah.
Do you put the fatty parts from the steak in the air fryer at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I've got
turns
a.
it
I've
like
got
bacon
some.
then almost. It's
Yeah, I've got some bags of fat out in the freezer and some lamb fat as well. And it's really good. And because my son's cows, like when he got the last ones done, we ended up with like mountains of brisket, and it's really fatty brisket. So like it'll have a bit of meat and then this much fat on the outside and this side of it. So what I've been doing with that when I pull it out is I cut the fat off that, cut it up, and do that in the air fryer. It's really good. Salt with salt on it.
Oh, yeah. Do
Good
you
stuff.
use Redmond's real salt or what do you
No,
use?
we don't get that here. We don't get it. I buy Celtic sea salt.
Oh, okay, Celtic. Ah, the
Mm.
Celtic warriors out there.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, we got it. You got to go to for us. It's not at the normal grocery store or regular.
Yep.
I'd have to go to like a Whole Foods thing type of place, and
Yeah.
they've got
Yeah. All
the Redmond's
online,
real
eh?
salt.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay, you guys, that is it for this episode. I had a blast. Hopefully Sue comes back. She said
Yep.
she would. You guys, there's value in Sue and there's value in her story. Okay, my coach says the first law of learning is repetition. So replay this, get all the info. You might have let your mind wander. Watching something else, get a notification about a text message or something, and then you miss something. So replay it. Make sure you get everything. And you guys go subscribe to her channel too. Hook it up. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. I had a blast. I'll do my duck face on the way out for you guys. Love you guys.